Okay, so tonight we have Lien Luong, a biologist, with us to talk about the amazing birds of Tanzania. So that sounds really exciting. Lien is an associate professor of biology at the University of Alberta, and her research focuses on the ecology of insects and their parasites. She started her journey into the birding world in January in 2020 in earnest, and that was gained during the pandemic time. So many people started to go out birding. And then she decided to go on an exciting journey to Africa on a photo safari in 2023, which was a childhood dream of hers. She was astounded by the great diversity of birds she saw on her trip. And tonight she's going to share her safari adventure with us and some of the birds that she's seen, and maybe even a few animals if we're lucky. Okay, Leanne, take it away. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. You can share yours.
Okay. Okay, you all see this?
Now we can.
Okay, great, thanks. Am I on mute?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So yeah, this was just meant to be a general like safari. And what it's not, there are trips that are dedicated to bird watching, but we wanted to see everything possible out there, including birds, everything from insects to birds. So we saw the whole gambit. I'll talk more about this bird in a little bit, but I want to just jump into the slideshow first and sort of share with you some of what we experienced. So we signed up for like a tour package, and I customized what national parks along with the tour agent as to which park we wanted to go to. And we ultimately settled on a 14-day itinerary. And this is sort of a typical safari vehicle that you'll see out there. It's sort of a Jeep-like vehicle with the Land Cruiser, and the roof pops up. And so you can they encourage you to stand on the seats to view the wildlife. So I went with my two sisters and each of our partners, so there were 6 of us. So let's see. So this is sort of our route. We flew into Arusha. It's a small town. Most of the safaris in Tanzania start in Arusha. This is near Mount Kilimanjaro, of course, and a lot of people go trekking through there. We did not. We wanted to do just wildlife. There is a national park there called Arusha National Park that isn't very famous, but I wanted to go there because there are no lions and leopards there, which may be discouraging, but that means you can get out and walk around. All the other parks, they don't want you to leave the vehicle. So I wanted to do a little walking safari. We spent 2 nights there before getting into the vehicle and driving all the way to this area. This is Lake Manyara. And we first went to Tarangire National Park. So we spent about 2 nights at each of these destinations. And then we got in the vehicle and drove to Lake Manyara National Park. And then the highlight for most people, if you can only do a couple of parks, I would recommend Ngorongoro Crater National Park. And then, of course, the penultimate Serengeti National Park. So this is at our lodge. So this is the morning we woke up from our lodge, and we were sitting outside having breakfast. And there was this little fire finch just hanging out by the water bath. Just really great start to our morning. So another common bird that was hanging out by the lodge is the common bulbul. It's a very active, gregarious bird. They tend to hang around near human habitats and are fairly common, as the name implies. Then we saw this other little guy named the blue-capped cordon bleu, really beautiful, small little finch like bird that was also sort of hanging around the lodge. Another one, we hadn't even left the lodge yet. So this is on the grounds of the lodge. It's called the Hadada ibis. It's very common in Africa. They also like to hang out near human habitats. They spend a lot of time probing the soil for food, but people don't mind them because when they're probing the soil, they help aerate and turn the soil. So people don't mind having them around. And then just before we hopped onto our vehicle, this was hanging out in the tree as we came out the front door. And this is the black-necked weaver. There are a lot of different species of weaver in the parks we visited. And as you can tell, they make their nests, hanging nests here out of grass and twigs. And here's an individual provisioning food to the nest. A lot of the names that we were given are, of course, local names. I didn't try to learn their Latin names. And as you know, local names can vary from region to region. So then we entered the first national park, Arusha National Park. As I mentioned, it's not world famous, but I wanted to go there because that's where you can see these black and white colobus monkeys, and you can see them on either side of that the welcome sign. So again, we have the Hanada ibis, and there were many of these hanging out on trees. It was early morning, so they were still kind of waking up from their roosting site. But really beautiful birds. Oh, this is our one of two bee eaters that we saw on our walk. So this park, there are a lot of people driving around their Jeeps and very few people get out, but we got out and we were accompanied by a park ranger with a rifle in case the water buffalo would charge us, which rarely happens, but they carry a rifle and to scare off the buffalo. So anyways, so we saw all of these on foot. So we have the white-fronted bee eater, and as the name implies, they eat bees, but they also eat other insects in the Hymenoptera order, which are the bees, the wasps, ants. And I learned that the way they avoid getting stung is when they catch a bee or a wasp, they bash it against the stem until until the bee is so disoriented or until the stinger gets mashed. Then they can swallow it safely. This little bee eater is one of the smallest bee eaters in Tanzania. It was quite far away, so my photo is not very clear. And then we went to this lake called Momella Lake, and there were lots of flamingos there. This is the beginning of their breeding season, so we were a bit early, so it didn't there weren't like huge numbers, but still quite a lot. This to them was not that many. So at the height of the breeding season, apparently this lake fills up with flamingos. So we were there early and they were just starting to arrive for the breeding season. In the background is another mountain, but I forget the name of the mountain. So you can see them coming in here. These are lesser flamingo. You can tell because their bill is mostly black. You'll see a picture later of the greater flamingo, which has a pink bill. And then the following day, we got in our vehicle and drove to Tarangire National Park. First thing we saw were these colored lovebirds, yellow colored lovebirds. And as you can tell from the name, well, it's a type of parakeet. So they are quite pretty. They, yeah, so they're native to this area. Oh, this is a domestic bird. It's wild, but sometimes people keep them. It's called a knob-billed duck. You can tell this is the male. The female does not have the knob on her head. Um, so they live in like sort of small lakes and ponds, sort of within the park. This is another type of weaver. It's called the white-headed buffalo weaver. They build really elaborate nests, apparently with multiple compartments and tunnels. And they also make their nests out of branches and twigs. If you want me to repeat anything, feel free to interrupt me. Or if you have a question. Okay, and then we saw a fair number of raptors. This one, all the names were provided to us by our guide, so I didn't really look up any of these myself. This is the brown snake eagle, as the name implies, it eats snakes. But they also like to eat. Yeah, so what they do is they'll decapitate the snake and um, and bring it back to their nest. This is another raptor, the Burroughs eagle. This one likes to eat hyrax. So wherever hyrax density is high, that's where you'll see a lot of these. If you don't know what a hyrax or rock hyrax is, it's spelled Hyraxe. It looks like a little woodchuck, but it's actually the closest land relative to elephants. But they're only like this big, like the size of a marmot. They look like a marmot, but if you look closely at their genetics and at their teeth and the structure of their toes, they're the closest land animal to an elephant, which I found highly, and it was very rare to see, and we were lucky to see one. As Karen mentioned, I didn't have enough space to put in all my slides, but I could do another like mammal slide if people are interested in mammals. This is a weaver bird, a cluster of weaver bird nests, just sort of, they tend to nest near each other. This is another weaver, really pretty specs weaver. The males in this case can have more than one nest, more than one mate. And as you can see, they nest in colonies that can potentially have up to 200 nests per tree. So it's a very busy neighborhood. Oh, so this is a hornbill. So you might think it looks like a toucan. Toucans are mainly in the Central America and the New World, but in the Old World, like Africa, you have hornbills, and they're not closely related, but they fill sort of the same ecological niche, and they have similar ecology. They build nests in cavities. The females lay their eggs. Sorry. The females will lay their eggs, and then she seals the hole with mud and feces and debris and their like feces or droppings. And the only thing that's left behind is a small opening that the male will feed her through and her chicks. And then when the chicks are old enough, she breaks the opening, leaves, and then reseals it from the outside, and then they continue feeding the chicks through that hole until they're old enough to fledge. And while she's in the nest, she molts, so she loses a lot of her feathers, and that lines the nest. And then before she emerges again, she has her new feathers. And the interesting thing is that the toucans in the New World, Central America, have the same ecology. They have the same breeding behavior, which is really cool. Oh, what's happening? Oh, Okay, now we're entering Lake Manyara, another national park. So at the lake, as you can imagine, there are a number of shorebirds. This is a yellow-billed stork, a very large stork, and you can see in the background there's a couple of other birds. You have the little black heron on the right of the stork, and then to the left, far back, is um, a blacksmith lapwing. I'll show you closer up pictures of them. Oh yeah, so this is really cool. This is the stork, but you often see large numbers of them riding the thermals above, which is really cool. Um, their version of it's a black-headed heron. It's about the same size as our great blue heron. So it's foraging for food in the lake. This is the black heron, a little bit smaller. This is another lapwing. They're mainly ground birds and they nest in the ground. And there was a pair of these running around making a lot of noise because I think we were near their nest. This one was dive bombing me because I think I was near the nest, but I could not see the nest because the grass was pretty tall. So I did not stay around very long. Oh, here's another. This is one of the larger hornbills. This is the African gray hornbill. It's bigger than the one that I showed you previously. So there were a number of swallows, but it was difficult to take a picture of them because many of them did not want to land. But this one landed briefly for me. This is a lesser striped swallow. And they're one of the most abundant swallows in Africa. I don't have my chat window open, so I'll have to answer your questions. Yeah, okay, let me look at it. I was there in May. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this bird was hanging out by the bushes in the garden where we were staying, so just right by the swimming pool. It was feeding on the flowers, and the variable sunbird looks like a hummingbird, but it's not a hummingbird. But it fills the same ecological niche. It's a nectar feeder. It's a little bit bigger than a hummingbird. Um, this one. Yeah. So this one is about 10 centimeters long. And you can see it has a thin curved bill that it uses, and like a hummingbird has a long tubular tongue. So this is sort of an example of a convergent evolution with hummingbirds, where they live in different habitats. They're not related, but they have similar sort of ecology. So they feed on similar types of food. So they've evolved similar beak structures. This is a white brown cacao or cuckoo. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly. So I don't have any recordings of it, but they're known for like making these sounds that sound like water being poured from a bottle. So if you're curious, you can find YouTube videos of them making their little water sounds, like the sound of pouring water out of a bottle. I won't try to imitate it. This bird, another weaver, really far away. So this is a heavily cropped photo. This is the black-headed weaver, also, known for its elaborate nesting behavior. They often nest in acacia trees, and acacia trees have a lot of thorns on them. So to them, that provides an extra measure of safety when they make their nests on acacia trees. Okay, this is a fork-tailed drongo. We only saw one of these. But they are also they also eat bees. They're known to hang around bees. And what's cool about them is that they'll make deceptive alarm calls that cause other animals to run for cover, and then when that happens, they retrieve the food that they drop. So they're kind of like sneaky little birds. This bird is like our version of a starling. They're um, they're really beautiful. They're everywhere. And the first time we saw it, we made the driver stop in the middle of the road so we could take a photo. And he was very patient. But later we saw them everywhere. Like you stop for lunch, they're hanging around the picnic tables, they're on the cars. So it's kind of funny. But as always, the first time you see something, you get really excited. And then later on, you realize, oh, they're quite common. And they were everywhere. But like other starlings, they also mimic sounds from other species of birds. For some reason I don't have the time, but you'll have to let me know if I'm going too slow. So this is the yellow-throated spurfowl. There were a couple of these that we saw right around dusk. They were running around the grass and, so sort of typical ground birds. This is the red-throated spurfowl. Oh, this beautiful bird is the lilac-breasted roller. They get their name from these impressive courtship flights that they do, which consists of sort of this fast but shallow dive from a high distance, and then it sort of ends with a rolling motion. So just fantastic colors. We saw a few of those, not super common, but not super rare. My sister caught this photo, actually. It just happened that we observed one. I just caught a piece of breakfast, a beetle there, and he swallowed it whole. So that was a really cool photo. Can someone tell me my timing? I don't have the time on my screen for some reason.
It's 7:30, so you got a lot of time.
Oh, okay. Okay, this is the African pied wagtail, and as the name implies, they often, when they're standing there, they'll sort of pump their tail up and down. Not really sure why they do that, but they hang around people. They're very much, like common around human habitats. They like to nest in like roofs and human structures. So this is a thatched roof around the dining kitchen area of the lodge. And so that individual was visiting the nest regularly, so I was able to see the chicks hiding in the nest. Oh, this beautiful bird is the paradise wida, or wida, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. This is the male, obviously, during the breeding season, he grows, the tail isn't there year round. He grows these feathers around the breeding season. And as you can tell, the tail alone is, about 20 centimeters long. And most of these pictures are taken from the vehicle, so we could not get as close as we would have liked. This one was very far away, so it's kind of a poor photo, but it's a saddle-billed stork. It's another one of their big storks in Tanzania. But it has a wingspan of about 9 feet, so it's one of the larger ones. This is the largest hornbill that we saw. This is the southern ground hornbill. It's the largest, it's the heaviest, and they're rarely seen in trees, even though they can fly. They can weigh up to 6 kilograms. They can fly if they're threatened, but they rarely do. And And they like to hunt reptiles and especially snakes. And they'll hunt cooperatively. So we saw three of these hunting, looking for food together. And when they do find the snake, they'll like shake it and stab it repeatedly until it dies. um, but they eat insects too. So we observed a few of them collecting smaller insects. And one of the funny things that they do is if they see another morsel of food that they like, they'll put down the other one, gather them together, rearrange their food, and then pick them all back up again. So they sort of do this thing until they get like a beak full of food. Kind of funny. Yeah, but these are massive. I mean, I had never seen, it was a little bigger than a turkey even. This cute little fella or fellow is a gray-headed kingfisher. This is called a black-winged bishop, also pretty common, still really pretty. Sorry, this is blurred. This was taken right at dusk, so the lighting was terrible. But this is a marabou stork. Here's another one during the day. So it's a stork, but you might be able to see, it's also a large one. It has a wingspan of 2.5 meters. And they, unlike other storks, are scavengers. And you can tell because you look at their head, they don't have any feathers. So just like a vulture. So they have the same sort of feeding behavior as a vulture, and as a result have evolved a loss of feathers in the head and neck region. And they're often seen feeding beside or next to other vultures at a carcass. This one was very far away. This is a scarlet-chested sunbird, but it was so pretty, I wanted to include it anyway. Again, not hummingbird, but similar sort of beak morphology. And then there were a bunch of other sort of passerines or songbirds that sort of resemble what we have here, slight variation of that. The African spoonbill, I really wanted to see it, but I only saw it as a flyover on our last day at this particular lodge. And as we were checking out, about to get in the car, my sister says, "Look up!" And there they were, just a fleeting view of them as they passed overhead. You can tell these were in our swimming pool at a hotel or lodge. These white-bellied canaries. It's a type of finch. So there were a number of birds there taking a bath in the swimming pool. So you see these are some pigeons and a few, and a few doves. Taking a drink from the swimming pool. This was on a planter near the pool, and it was really far away, and it only stayed for like a second. Actually, I was the only one who saw it. No one else saw it, but luckily I have a picture to prove it. They're very shy, very secretive, so very rare. Surprising that it's out in the open. Here are a variety of weavers. This one is, the brown ones are the chestnut, and then the yellow ones are the black-neck weavers. And then there's a female in the back there. So lots of different species of weavers and where we were. This little lark, sparrow lark, was hanging around the lake, so it's kind of a sandy area. then sort of the one of the highlight for a really popular park is this UNESCO site, the Ngorongoro Crater, which is the site. It's the crater of a dormant volcano, um, and because the soil is so fertile, it is green year round, and there are a lot of animals that go into this crater. Um, and except for giraffes, they can't manage their way down the slope of the crater. Even elephants, they have to go down on their sort of knees, like hands and knees, because it's a pretty steep crater. Um, so this is a bird that we saw at the lodge. They're called mouse bird because they live in sort of groups and they like to scamper around the ground. Looking, here's a video. I'm looking down on them from my window, my balcony. They're very noisy birds too. You can see why they're called mouse birds. Oh, this bird is Cory bustard, and this is a large bird. It can be between 7 and 18 kilograms. They mainly forage on the ground. They can fly if they have to, and they fly kind of low if they're startled. They're opportunistic omnivores, so they'll eat anything, including little things like insects. They're often seen following like the gazelle and other mammals as they stir up the insects. This bird will follow behind and pick up the insects that get kind of flushed out. They also will pick through animal dung for insects that are on the dung, but also a really big bird. But not as big as our ostrich. This is the Maasai ostrich. The males can get us. The males have the pink neck, so you see the ones in the back with the black feathers and the pink neck. Those are the males, and the three in the forefront with the pale necks are the females. And so they live in these groups, and they can weigh up to 145 kilograms. So obviously this is a flightless bird. See, here's this is an immature male. He hasn't gotten the red neck. The neck hasn't turned red yet. And then we saw a little family far, far away of baby ostriches. Really cute. And this was like a highlight. So these are gray-crowned crane. I think it's the official bird of Tanzania. And both of these, this is a male and a female. So both sexes have the same plumage. And they both do sort of like the same breeding sort of courtship behavior that sandhill cranes do. They sort of bob their head, they do a lot of bowing and jumping, same as sandhill cranes. And here they are feeding their chicks. So they were just picking things off the ground and feeding them. Really pretty birds. This is called a sacred ibis, and I actually had to look up why it has that name. And it's because there's evidence that they were mummified by the ancient Egyptians, as offerings to the gods. So they got to the point where they mummified so many that they were running out, so they had to start breeding these birds for the sole purpose of offering them as mummifying them for the gods as offerings. So these are the greater flamingos. This is again in the Ngorongoro Crater, and you can see them feeding here. There's a close-up of a flamingo. And as you may know, they feed by sort of sweeping their bill back and forth to filter out small invertebrates. So this is the crater. You can see the backside of the crater. You can see it's more steep in some areas, but just steep enough that giraffes can't manage their way down, so you don't see any giraffes here, but you do see elephants. And as you can see in the background, we went during May, which is the low season or shoulder season. So it's the, tail end of the rainy season, but we didn't see any rain there. The benefit is that there are fewer tourists and it's a little bit cheaper. The drawback is that depending on where you are, the grass can be quite tall. So if there's a cheetah sitting in the grass or a leopard walking through, you may not see it in the grass. So in the forefront are some Thompson's gazelles and a little lapwing at the bottom here. A little black and white blacksmith lapwing in the center bottom. So yeah, they were just gathering, feeding in this area. So you can see all the safari trucks passing by. This is the buff-shouldered widowbird, which is, if you don't know what a widowbird is, so have you ever seen like one of David Attenborough's or one of those documentaries about crazy bird courtship behaviors? Now, this is one of them. This is a male. He has this long tail that's about 20 inches long, and I think I have a video on the next one. We didn't see him at first, but then he started jumping up and down on the grass. So really comical. There must be a female nearby that we don't see. So he's doing this purely to impress her. And then he took off. Do we want to see that video again? It was kind of short. Okay, more sort of passerine type birds, nothing too exciting. This is a type of hawk. They call it a buzzard there, an auger buzzard. A little robin chat. Another type of boo-boo. Another type of woodall with a very, very long tail, probably, I read approximately 20 centimeters long. And these are brood parasites. They don't make their own nests. So they'll lay their eggs in other birds' nests and leave those chicks to be reared by the host bird. Oh, this cute little bird is a double-banded courser. It was just on the path, running around by the road. Very cute, very small, kind of the size of a black neck stilt. This is a Turaco. There's several species of these in the area. Really beautiful, very nervous birds. I saw it very briefly, and then as soon as another person walked by, it was gone. So I only saw it because I came out early and there was no one around, and I was very quiet. But as soon as one other person walked by, it disappeared. So it was a really rare sighting. They're there, you see them, but they don't land. And they're flying from one hiding spot to another. And then the final destination, the one park that I've been wanting to see since I was a kid. I had posters in my room of Serengeti National Park all over my walls. So this was my the height of my trip. And you can see here a bunch of vultures just hanging around. I didn't see any carcass, so I think they were just hanging. And there's a few species here. Um, I'll have pictures of those, individual pictures of those in a few minutes. The first one is also a vulture, but they call it the Rupal's griffin. It is a type of vulture, it's a carrion feeder. You can see the one on the right is tearing meat off of a piece of animal body part. This is the white-headed vulture. I think you can tell by the name why it's called that. This was really cool. This was hanging out on a tree next to the vehicle, and when we stood up on the seat, we were almost eye to eye with it. And it was doing this thing where it was moving its head sideways. It was very intimidating, especially with the red eyes. So it was giving us the look, trying to decipher whether we were a threat or lunch. But very cool. It was just moving its head side to side. This is a juvenile of a black-winged stilt, similar to our black-necked stilts. But as adults, the necks do not get dark. They just stay gray color, even as an adult. This is a funny bird. It's called a barefaced go-away bird. It's quite a big bird. It's probably, I would say like 40 to 50 centimeters. And they make a variety of calls, but one of the calls they make sounds like they're saying, go away, go away, go away, go away. You have to like imagine it if you YouTube the video, you have to imagine and listen very hard. You'll hear them saying, go away. And then we have this another raptor. This is the dark chanting goshawk. This bird sort of hangs out in swamp, like sort of ponds and lakes. It likes to eat amphibians and a variety of other things. Yeah, so it's called a hammerkop. I don't know where the origin of the name is. Oh, these are also pretty common, helmeted guinea fowl. They're also very large. They can grow up to 58 centimeters. As you can see, they're gregarious birds. And we often saw them walking like out in the field, in the savannah. And they can walk up to 10 kilometers or more a day. So big birds, about the size of a turkey or a little bigger. Here they are with their little chicks running away from us. This is a type of grouse, the yellow-throated sand grouse. It was just in the middle of the road, so we just took a picture through the windshield. This is a type of shrike. They call it a fisco, a gray-backed fisco. Oh, the wire-tailed swallow. So you can tell there are two sort of fine filaments that the males have coming out of the base of their tail. This one was very difficult to photograph because it refused to move away from the branch. So no matter what angle we tried to look at it, there was a branch in the way. It's the Eurasian hoopie or hoopie. Even though they're called Eurasian and they are found in Europe and Asia, they're considered native to Africa. And they were also considered sacred by the ancient Egyptians. They're often depicted in sort of the tombs and temples of the ancient Egyptian structures. You can't see it here, but they have a crest that opens up into like a fan shape. which is really pretty, but this one, he refused to do it for us. And this was my favorite of all, I have to say, the secretary bird. Massive bird. It's related to the buzzard or hawks, but is not a hawk. So they're related to buzzards, harriers, vultures. They spend almost all their time on the ground. They can fly if they're frightened, but they don't catch their prey with their feet. The way they catch their prey is they chase them down and then they stomp them until the prey goes unconscious. So they have really large, heavy feet, and they just, yeah, and they don't, their beaks are not the same kind of beaks as and they don't have sort of the grabbing talons of like hawks and eagles. They're more like smashing talons. So they just they'll stomp on their prey until they're either dead or just stunned, enough for them to eat it. The reason they're called secretary bird is because there's different reasons depending on what source you read, but when they have their feathers up, apparently because of the color and the feathers on their head, they resemble, I guess in the 1800s, male secretaries would wear these black and gray suits, and then they'd have feathers in their hats. So that's one story as to why they're called secretary bird. And so this was like one of the guide said, "Oh, what do you want to see when you come?" When, he was teasing us, of course, but he asked what we wanted to see, and I said, "Secretary bird." I had seen so many sort of nature documentaries about them, and finally we saw one in Serengeti. And then my last slide has a mammal, so maybe a good transition. These are red-billed oxpeckers, and they'll hang out on cattle, zebras, rhinoceros, any kind of ungulate. And they sit there and they feed on ticks and flies and maggots. There was one report that one bird can remove 100 ticks per day from their their host animal. So really, really cool birds. So that is my last slide as far as birds go. So if you want me to go back to any, or if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So people could probably just unmute themselves. I think you answered the one question there. What month were you there? And you mentioned it was May.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, we
don't.
chose May because it's cheaper and there are far fewer people. If you go during the peak season, which is the dry season, the pros are the grass is not as high, so you can see a lot of the wildlife. So for example, we didn't know what we were missing, right? If there was a leopard walking by in the grass, we wouldn't have known unless it climbed a tree. They do spend a lot of time in trees, so we did still see like 3 different leopards. So I don't feel like it was a disadvantage. The problem with high season is that it's very dry and dusty, and there are way more vehicles. It's almost like bumper to bumper traffic on White Ave. And when that happens, you're basically in everyone's dust. Like the vehicle in front of you is creating dust. So these are open air vehicles. Most of the time your top is open because you're looking out and you're making a lot of stops. Lifting the top is not easy. A lot of these vehicles, it's manual, so they're not gonna like open and close it. They open it and then at the end of the day they close it. So you're taking in a lot of dust. And if you're photographing, you'll probably want to be looking out the window, or you'll have your top be standing up. So during the high season, there's a lot of vehicles and roads are dry, so you're going to be have a lot of dust in your face. So all in all, I thought going in May was a perfect time for us.
Anybody have any questions for Lien?
I have a comment for Lien.
Yeah.
First of all, very nice talk. Really
Thank
enjoyed the
you.
pictures, and you only make me slightly jealous. Thanks for you showed the African pied wagtail. I just want to mention that's in the same family as the long-clawed that you showed.
Oh, okay.
Also in the same family as the pipit. So we have our American pipit, and they all tend to do the tail thing. And I think they're not really sure why they do it. Some people suggest that it's to sort of flush the insects to help them forage. But apparently they even do it when they're washing and preening themselves. So it's not really clear why they do it. Anyway,
Yeah,
really
this
nice.
one was doing it on the picnic table at
Yeah,
lunchtime.
yeah. We got the sandwiches to flush.
Yeah, it was trying to, yeah, I don't know what it was doing. Yeah.
Got a comment in here that said fantastic. Many of the birds are found in Namibia, where I was fortunate enough to visit. Great presentation. Somebody else said, great photography. Would love to see your animal photos. I can agree with that.
Yeah, I have another set of slides that I can do another time with the animals if people want.
That would be awesome. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Where's your next trip going?
I don't know, but I told Karen that this was in 2023, but this past May, so May of 2024, we went to Costa Rica. And I also have a lot of bird photos from Costa Rica. But I think we'll take a break from international travel for a little bit.
Was this a private tour, or was it one that anyone could find online?
I was referred to this company. It's a safari company, and because there was 6 of us, we were pretty much in our own group. From what I could see in other vehicles, I saw vehicles with just 2 people. Sometimes it seemed like you could choose to have a private tour if you're willing to pay a little more. But there are a lot of companies out there. Yeah, so I don't know if I could recommend the one that we took, mainly because I think they were overbooked, so they contracted out to another driver. And the vehicle that we were in, as you can saw, was not very nice and not very comfortable. And we saw nicer, newer vehicles out there. And I think because they contracted out, that we didn't get sort of as nice of a vehicle. The thing about safari also is you're out in the open. They do have designated lunch areas that they've set up with picnic tables and sort of bathroom facilities of varying degrees of service. But that only happens once a day. So you go out early in the morning and you're out all day, you eat lunch out there, and then you come back, they bring you to your lodge at the end of the day for supper. So if you need to go pee, basically they stop and you get out and you if you're a guy, you can go into the trees, but you can't go far because there are lions around. And if you're well, even the guy did this. They just stood behind the Jeep and everyone just looks forward. And if you're a woman, you just crouch down next to the bumper and you pee there. So we called it marking our territory. So whenever someone needed to mark their territory, the driver would just stop somewhere. That's a common question that people ask about safaris, like, where are the bathroom facilities?
Any other questions from anybody? I found it interesting that some of the birds were looking somewhat similar to some of our birds or birds I've seen in other countries too. So that's kind of interesting as well. So maybe some of them migrate during certain seasons to other countries as well.
Yeah,
And some
definitely. Yeah. I mean, the flamingos migrate too.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them do, yeah.
It was interesting. I never realized that there's difference in the bill colors with the flamingos, so that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I had to look that up as well because I wasn't sure. Yeah, yeah.
So somebody was asking about how expensive per person was the trip.
Okay, so as with everything, you can choose very basic amenities all the way up to luxury. So we chose sort of moderate, so that meant that the lodges were nice. They had running water, flushing toilet, hot water, um, comfortable beds. Many of them had swimming pools. Um, the food was good, but not gourmet. And the food they gave us were Western food, so they didn't do a lot of like local cuisine. And I think that's because the places we stayed at, they oftentimes had buffets and they were catering to large numbers of people from multiple countries. So we spent about per person about 5,000 US dollars. And I would say that's on the low end of what one can spend. It can go up. Again, we were there for 14 days. So, if you had a
That's pretty
smaller,
good.
less time and a smaller budget, just go to Ngorongoro Crater and Serengeti National Park. Those are like, if you want to do a walking safari, um, choose Arusha National Park. And I recommend it because it was the only time that we were standing near giraffes. I mean, it was magical. Half of us were like, we had tears in our eyes because we were standing in a meadow and a family of giraffes just walked right by us. It was unreal. Um, it's the only time you get to get out of the vehicle and stand and walk around. And the walk wasn't even that hard. It was a 30-minute flat walk into a meadow, and no one was around except for us and our guide. Um, so, and then of course we saw the black and white colobus monkey and a bunch of other, animals. But the giraffes, seeing them, up close, not in a vehicle, is really special.
And where was that again?
Arusha National Park.
Arusha. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a nice way because you land and you're tired, you've had a long flight. The last thing you want to do is wake up the next day and drive to a national park. So it's nice to just, have a day. You just, you go 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you get out, walk around, and right away you see wildlife.
Could you maybe bring up your route map for us again?
Sure. Wait a minute. Or not. Let's not do that. Can you still see my screen?
Yep.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
Just need to get it full size. Or not.
Yeah, so Arusha National Park.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all these spots, the letters are where you went. Is that
That's
correct?
where we stopped, yeah. We actually went to two different parts of Serengeti. And the initial itinerary just had 2 nights. And I said, no, that's not enough for my childhood dream. So I added us 2 more nights. And so we went to like 2 parts of the Serengeti. And
Oh, okay.
when I do my other slideshow, you'll see that it was worth it because we saw things over here that we didn't see over here. And depending on what time you go, you might see the wildebeest crossing the river. We did see the Great Migration. I will tell you, the Great Migration, if you've probably heard of, is when you have the wildebeest and the zebras and the gazelles, traveling in a clockwise direction from Tanzania down to from Kenya down to Serengeti and then back up. And it's this annual cycle that they do following the rains, following the grass. But when they enter Kenya, they have to cross a stream through full of crocodiles, and that's where you see those dramatic videos
Mm.
of wildebeest getting, attacked by crocodiles. We went there at that time. That is in July, August, but that's also the most crowded and expensive time to go.
Mm.
You will see mass numbers of wildebeest. It was still really impressive. So I don't regret choosing May. And even in May, when you go and there's a leopard in the tree, there are like 30 other jeeps around the same tree. And you can only sit in the prime sort of angle for your picture for a few minutes, because then you gotta let other vehicles, like the drivers, it's like a drive-through. You have to move and then let other people have their chance to get sort of their photo in. So that's during the shoulder season. Imagine how bad it is during the high season.
Yeah. Mm. Oh. Well, that was an excellent presentation. It was very enjoyable. Lots of comments, wonderful, fantastic. Everybody sounds like they really enjoyed it. It was very cool seeing all the different birds, for sure.
Yeah, I
So
had fun sharing it.
yeah, and it's sort of a chance to relive your thing, your
Definitely.
trip as well, right? So, and thank you so much for sharing it with us. Everybody's always, or a lot of people are interested in African safaris, right? Even if we
Yeah.
can't go, it's nice to see when people go and what they get to see and stuff and hear about their trips. It's always so interesting. So thanks so much for sharing, and maybe we'll hear from you again with
Okay.
another presentation. So thank you so much, Lien,
Yeah.
and we hope to see you again. And everybody, remember what Wayne's hike on the weekend coming up here on Saturday. That would be great. And then our next presentation will be December 13th, I believe, with Dr. Jeff Holroyd on the birds of Christmas, looking at the count over the many years that they've been compiling that data. So that will be very interesting. And please do check out the ENC Nature Club calendar for upcoming events and other things that are be listed in there, as well as non-ENC events. And there's one of those at the end of the month on the 28th with the Alberta Nature Club, looking at wildlife and the geology of the landscape. So again, a very interesting presentation. I think that would be as well. So thanks everybody for coming. Feel free to go, and hopefully we'll see you at the next one. So take care.